August 14, 2003. In less than 4 minutes, the lights go out for 55 million people. Phones fail. Internet routers blink off. New York's emergency lines fall silent. Later, during Katrina and Maria, over 90% of cell towers collapse, leaving responders stranded. Yet, buried beneath the chaos, an invisible layer of ruthless redundancy, emergency radio networks, keeps vital messages moving when everything else breaks. How is it possible that, as modern systems crumble, these analog lifelines endure? The secrets start at the moment of total blackout. 12:45 p.m. on August 14, 2003. In a matter of minutes, the power grid across the Northeast begins to unravel. Transmission lines in Ohio sag into overgrown trees, tripping circuit breakers. Software meant to alert operators freezes. One by one, high-voltage lines drop offline, and the cascade accelerates. By 4:10 p.m., the blackout races from Michigan to New York, plunging 55 million people into darkness. Elevators stall, subways grind to a halt, hospitals lose primary power, and traffic signals go dead. In New York City, emergency lines are overwhelmed, and cell towers begin to fail as backup batteries drain within hours. Internet routers blink out, cutting off digital lifelines. For 4 hours, the modern world's promise of seamless connectivity collapses in real time. Yet, as commercial networks blink off, a different kind of system comes alive, a deliberately overbuilt, invisible communication layer. Emergency radio repeaters, perched on mountain ridges and hardened towers, switch instantly from utility power to banks of deep-cycle batteries. Within seconds, automatic diesel generators roar to life, triggered by transfer switches designed to detect even brief voltage sags. Solar panels, installed for long-term resilience, begin recharging battery banks before fuel runs low. This is ruthless redundancy in action: 4 layers of backup, grid, batteries, generators, and solar, engineered so that no single failure can silence the network. While the blackout paralyzes cities and disables most commercial communications, emergency radio networks keep working. Volunteer operators, trained for grid-down scenarios, relay urgent messages between agencies and hospitals. Repeaters, powered by 72-hour battery packs and topped up by solar arrays, continue transmitting. In the chaos, these analog lifelines carry vital information, dispatches, status updates, and public alerts when every other system fails. The 2003 blackout revealed the fragility of the modern grid, but it also proved the value of an invisible, analog backbone built to endure. Redundancy is not a luxury. It is the foundation that keeps emergency communications alive when everything else goes dark. August 29, 2005. As Hurricane Katrina's storm surge breaches the levees, the floodwaters swallow New Orleans' power grid. Within hours, substations vanish underwater, and the city's telecommunications backbone begins to unravel. In the first 12 hours, nearly 90% of cell towers across the region go offline. Battery backups, designed for brief interruptions, drain quickly as fuel deliveries stall and generators drown or run dry. Landline switching centers, many located in low-lying districts, fill with water and silence their circuits. By the end of the first day, the commercial networks that once stitched the city together, cellular, internet, and even many radio stations, have all but disappeared. The collapse is not just about broken antennas or lost power. Flooded substations knock out the electrical lifelines to every layer of modern communication. Even facilities with backup generators face a new threat. Fuel tanks are either underwater or inaccessible, and resupply convoys can't reach the city for days. In some parishes, phone and data service drops to near zero. Emergency operations centers, cut off from both the outside world and each other, scramble for any working channel. The speed and scale of the failure expose the system's weak points. Most cell sites depend on a single utility feed and a set of batteries meant for a few hours, not days. Diesel generators, where present, are only as reliable as their fuel supply, and in Katrina's aftermath, fuel is as scarce as dry ground. Centralized switching creates single points of failure. The result is a communications vacuum, one that endangers rescue operations, hospital coordination, and public safety at every level. In the absence of ruthless redundancy, the city's digital lifelines dissolve almost overnight. It is here, in the silence left by drowned infrastructure, that the need for overbuilt, multi-layered emergency radio networks becomes painfully clear. Katrina's telecom freefall is not just a story of what failed, but a warning of what must be engineered to survive the next disaster. A working emergency radio network depends on a power chain engineered to outlast disaster. At the top sits the utility grid, feeding energy to repeater sites and control rooms as long as commercial power holds. But when the grid falters, the system pivots instantly to its next layer. Deep cycle batteries, often built around lithium iron phosphate chemistry. These Li-FePO4 banks are chosen for their ability to deliver up to 80% of their stored energy without damage, a major leap over older lead-acid designs. In a typical setup, a 200 amp-hour Li-FePO4 battery can keep a 250-watt repeater running for 72 hours, meeting FEMA's strict autonomy requirement and buying precious time while the outside world scrambles to restore order. The handoff from grid to battery happens in less than a second, controlled by an automatic transfer switch. The ATS is the silent sentinel of the power room. It monitors the incoming voltage, and if it senses a sag or complete loss, it disconnects from the grid and triggers the next stage. Within 30 seconds, diesel generators roar to life. These generators are sized to cover the repeater's full load and then some, burning through about 4 gallons of fuel per hour for a 40-kilowatt unit. FEMA mandates at least 2 days' worth of fuel on site, stored in tanks protected from flood and fire. Maintenance logs show these generators are run and tested every month to ensure they will not fail when called upon. But even diesel has limits. When fuel runs low or resupply is impossible, solar panels step in. A typical repeater site might use 3 100-watt panels, each feeding a smart charge controller. These panels can keep a 5-watt VHF repeater transmitting for weeks, provided there is enough sunlight to top up the batteries each day. At high elevations, careful panel alignment and regular cleaning maximize winter energy harvest. This 4-layer chain, utility, battery, generator, solar, forms the backbone of ruthless redundancy. Every link is tested, retested, and monitored so that when the grid goes down, the signal does not. High above the chaos of failed grids and drowned cities, a different kind of security stands watch. Emergency radio repeaters are anchored to mountain ridges and remote peaks, where altitude is more than a vantage point. It is a survival strategy. At 4,800 feet on Spruce Knob in West Virginia, a steel lattice tower rises another 45 feet into the sky, engineered to withstand winds up to 140 miles per hour and 2 inches of ice loading. These sites are built for what engineers call analog durability, the ability to keep working year after year when everything else gives out. Elevation is the secret weapon. A single mountaintop repeater with a clear line of sight can cover a radius of 70 to 120 miles, reaching valleys, cities, and rural towns that would otherwise be isolated in a blackout. In the Appalachian Range, the WVWX repeater's coverage stretches across 3 states. On Pikes Peak in Colorado, a repeater at over 14,000 feet blankets the Front Range, its signal bouncing across hundreds of square miles regardless of snow or gale. The physical demands on these sites are extreme. Towers are bolted to bedrock, their footings designed for decades of freeze-thaw cycles. Enclosures are insulated against temperatures plunging to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Solar panels are tilted for winter sun, while battery banks, most often lithium iron phosphate, are sized to deliver 72 hours of power even in the darkest weeks of January. Maintenance teams reach these sites by snowmobile or helicopter, sometimes only once a season, and every component is chosen for reliability over convenience. This is the invisible mesh that holds during disaster. Unlike commercial networks, which rely on dense webs of low-elevation towers and centralized switching, these high-elevation repeaters operate as independent sentinels. Each one is a node of resilience, able to relay messages across vast distances even when the valleys below are silent. This is analog durability in its purest form, a network that endures not because it is hidden from nature, but because it is built to face it head-on. When the grid collapses and commercial networks vanish, emergency communications do not depend on luck or improvisation alone. They rest on a foundation of policy, protocol, and purpose-built systems engineered to withstand failure at every level. At the heart of this institutional resilience sits the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, IPAWS, a national backbone designed to deliver life-saving alerts across every possible channel. IPAWS operates on a triple path model. Messages are encoded in the Common Alerting Protocol, then routed simultaneously through broadcast television and radio, the Wireless Emergency Alert Service for mobile phones, and the NOAA Weather Radio Network. Even if 1 or 2 channels fall silent, the third can still deliver. Behind the scenes, redundant satellite uplinks and high-frequency radio backups stand ready to carry CAP encoded alerts when terrestrial lines are cut. Every state emergency agency is bound by agreement to participate and test these systems, ensuring that the network is never left to chance. But voice and data traffic for first responders demand a different kind of assurance. In 2018, after years of debate and a $6.5 billion investment from Congress, FirstNet went live, a dedicated broadband network built exclusively for public safety. Unlike commercial cellular carriers, FirstNet operates on priority spectrum, immune to congestion even as millions reach for their phones in a crisis. Each tower is equipped with dual battery backups, standby diesel generators, and fiber links that allow traffic to reroute instantly if a site is lost. In the event of total terrestrial failure, FirstNet switches to satellite backhaul, maintaining coverage for police, fire, and medical teams. Governance is tightly integrated with the National Incident Management System, so that during disasters, FirstNet can interoperate with traditional VHF and UHF radio repeaters, as well as with IP, ADUS, alert gateways. Mara Ortiz, an emergency communications coordinator in Texas, describes the assurance this brings. It's not just about having radios that work when the power is out. It's about knowing that every message has 3 ways out and 3 ways in. That's what saves lives. These institutional layers, policy-driven, technologically redundant, and rigorously tested, form the bridge between engineered hardware and the people who rely on it. The next link in the chain is human. The volunteers and professionals who keep these systems running when the world goes dark. When the world goes silent, the last voices often belong to volunteers. September 11th, 2001. As the towers fell and Lower Manhattan's phone lines choked with static, a handful of amateur radio emergency service operators began relaying messages from the disaster zone. In the first 48 hours, over 1,200 urgent transmissions crossed their networks, status updates, supply requests, names of the missing, each one a lifeline when official channels were paralyzed. Their radios ran on battery packs and portable generators, immune to the chaos that crippled cell towers and overloaded landlines. For days, these volunteers formed the only bridge between ground zero and the outside world. 16 years later, Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico with a different kind of silence. Winds shredded antennas, and the island's power grid collapsed overnight. Within hours, 95% of cell sites were dark. In that communications vacuum, ham operators like Tom Lightning Hayes and his ARES team unpacked solar-charged repeaters and deep-cycle LiFePO4 batteries. For 21 days, their mountaintop relay stayed on the air, powered by sun and discipline, handling thousands of messages between shelters, hospitals, and FEMA. They cleared solar panels of wind-blown debris twice a day, rationed battery draw at night, and logged every call. No internet, no cell signal, just radio waves, batteries, and human resolve. Across the United States, nearly 750,000 licensed amateur operators stand ready for moments like these. They drill for grid-down emergencies, train with first responders, and know that when the engineered layers of ruthless redundancy are finally tested, it is people, skilled, stubborn, and invisible, who keep the signal alive. Every emergency radio network is only as strong as its operators. Readiness is not left to chance. Frequencies are pre-programmed into radios months in advance, following national and regional band plans designed to avoid interference. Operators memorize these channels, often taping quick reference cards to gear for instant access. When a blackout hits, there is no time to fumble for instructions. Protocols demand that teams deploy within 15 minutes with radios powered up, antennas raised, and check-ins underway. Quarterly drills enforce this discipline. During these exercises, volunteers and professionals alike rehearse grid-down scenarios. No GPS, no cell phones, no internet. Operators navigate by printed maps and compass, relaying messages using standardized voice procedures. Each drill simulates a real disaster, whether it's a cyber attack or a hurricane, requiring teams to establish contact with repeaters, relay traffic to distant counties, and maintain logs by hand. Failure to check in or pass a test message within the first hour means a retraining session, not a pat on the back. Battery banks are tested for capacity loss every 3 months, while generators are run under load to catch hidden faults. Radios are checked for firmware updates and correct channel programming. Even the smallest details matter. Antenna cables are inspected for weather damage, and every operator is expected to know how to assemble a portable mast in the dark. These routines are not just habit, they are survival skills. The invisible communication layer depends on this practiced discipline, ensuring that when commercial networks vanish, the signal keeps moving, powered by people as much as by hardware. Dr. Priya Singh stands in a windowless control room, scanning a bank of terminals that track satellites streaking across the sky. The next frontier in emergency communications is no longer just mountaintop repeaters or diesel generators. It's a mesh of low Earth orbit satellites designed to keep the signal alive when every wire and tower on the ground goes dark. The Iridium constellation, with 66 satellites circling the planet, offers near-instant voice and data links even when hurricanes flatten cell towers or wildfires cut fiber lines. In Alaska, a month-long blackout simulation showed Iridium Certus terminals delivering 99.4% uptime, with voice traffic relayed in under 30 milliseconds, fast enough for real-time emergency dispatch. AST Spacemobile's pilot in Texas takes it further. A single cell site equipped with a Spacemobile repeater switched to satellite backhaul during a simulated 48-hour outage. 96% of calls went through, with coverage spanning 95% of the region's rugged terrain. Yet even as these networks expand, the need for redundancy remains. Dr. Singh's team is integrating satellite mesh with traditional VHF and UHF repeaters, ensuring that when the grid fails, messages can still leap from analog radio to orbiting satellites and back to earthbound responders. FEMA's latest roadmap calls for hybrid power kits, solar, LiFePO4 batteries, and diesel, paired with standardized satellite terminals at every regional command post. But technology alone is not enough. Funding for new hardware, maintenance, and operator training remains a constant struggle. The resilience of the invisible communication layer depends on continued investment and a new generation of volunteers willing to master both analog skills and digital tools. Dr. Singh's message is clear. The future of survival is layered, relentless, and powered by people who refuse to let the signal die. In a world where 95% of cell towers can vanish overnight, only ruthless redundancy and analog durability keep critical voices connected. When 55 million lose power or hurricanes erase the grid, it's the invisible communication layer, repeaters, batteries, and people, that still endures. As threats evolve, our lifelines depend not on convenience, but on deliberate over-engineering. The next blackout isn't if, but when. What would you trust if everything else failed?